looking at politics and politicking, the front page of the Daily Independent talks about the PDP crisis, says the Board of Trustees backs governors and recognizes Ude Okoye as party scribe. They support March 13th for PDP NEC meeting. Let's get your thoughts on the division that's happening in the PDP. I'll start with you, Prof. And what's happening regarding their secretary. They're choosing who the national secretary is has become an issue of debate right now.
It's still the same thing all over, because I don't know the party constitution, because some of them are saying the party constitution says you can keep your position
while you go and contest, and when you fail, you come back. That's what some of them are saying. I don't know about that. But I know about the constitution of the country that says you have to resign. In fact, I can tell you, I can give you a succinct example, though with the 1979 election, constitution, sorry. What happened was that a particular deputy governor, Amalaha, who was supposed to be the deputy of the man we call Dr. Sam Mbakwe, now didn't resign his appointment in Avadikoku. He was a lecturer at Avadikoku College of Education. He was supposed to resign 3 months to that election. He kept his position and was running for the election as a running mate of Sam Mbakwe. Now, they eventually won the election, and the court said, no, you didn't resign your position, so you cannot be his deputy. That led to Mbakwe taking another deputy.
So he went back to the
Yes, he went back to Avadikoku. So he said, the law says you should resign. And let me tell you, the 1999 Constitution is a rider of the 1979 Constitution. So it's still the same thing. So he should have resigned his position before going to contest that election in Imo State. So having resigned his position, and the party have appointed another person. And look at the stories. Now the BOT and the Governors Forum all agreed, because they appointed a son who looked at the judgment from Enugu and the judgment of the appeal court. And they said they were on the same page. And they said, look, the rightful person should be the appointed person and they should be sworn in. So I don't know why people are making
a big deal out of it. Let me bring Mr. Ashiru into the conversation. When you look at the political landscape in Nigeria now, it seems like most opposition parties, the major ones, have some sort of internal wranglings and disagreements. Some have alleged that it's a ploy by the ruling APC to destabilize and weaken opposition in Nigeria. I'm not sure I've heard anything of sort in the African Democratic Congress, your party. What do you make of all of this?
Whenever you gather people together, there is always a struggle for power. That's not an unusual thing. So whether it's...
Yeah, but the opposition, they're not even in power.
No, I mean, power is nothing to do with being in government. Power is to control whatever entity. We have it in churches, we have it in religious institutions, NGOs, in families, even when they are poor. And I think so that's the first thing I want us to understand, that that's something that comes with the territory. Whether it's been sponsored or not, that's again politics. There was always going to be interference in the way your enemy operates. Anybody who rests on zoo or with the art of war and all those sort of things, realize that everyone who is potentially your enemy politically, you do whatever you need to do to ensure that they don't...
By any means
possible. So I'm a realist. The reason I don't want to comment directly is that basically PDP is a party, I'm a party. So for me to be commenting on the internal issues that's going on in another party. Now, when you talked about African Democratic Congress, yes, we did have a crisis during the last election at the national level, which was then resolved through alternative dispute resolution. Of recent, everybody who was on opposite sides came together and said, okay, we're one family, we're going to move forward. So that's something that they could also do. But it takes leadership. It takes someone at the very top deciding that this party is greater than my ambition. This party is greater than my thoughts or my desires or my ambitions. So when you don't have a singular father, one of the things that I have to make a reference back to what happened in Lagos State. The idea of having a GAC is that you have a group of eminent people that no matter what the size of the disputes are, they can bring people together. But they are discussing Lagos State, and an unelected body is deciding the future of the state. That's where we have a problem. Not just that it's an unelected body, it's a body only of people within the ruling party. So they're not advising the governor, they're advising the head of the party. So to us, they're like the BOT. So whatever they agree among themselves, it's not binding on us as Lagosians. What we would like is that in other countries, when a prime minister or a head or the head of assembly is not, you call it snap election. Okay, you know what? We've just decided that we need a new leader. It doesn't even matter if you are doing very well.
Yeah,
they can make that, and then the rest of us will say, yes, go ahead and vote. This is the person we want you to vote for. But when you stay overnight, 12 midnight, 1 a.m., the person is not around. We had a lot of this during Obasanjo's era, where people were removed summarily, governors were removed summarily, and everything was upside down. But that is...
They even leave the assembly house and go to
some
hotels.
of them will carry the mace and they will do all kinds of things. Now that tells you that our democracy is still very weak and it is still not following due process. Impunity is the order of the day, you know, and while we are not necessarily here endorsing the lack of, or shall we say, we're not necessarily saying Obasa as a person. Was an individual.
No.
It's more about the process.
We're looking at the process.
It's about establishing the institutionalization of the right process.
Yeah.
Because the culture you create is the culture the future will follow.
Exactly.
So if this is happening, if they wake up one morning and decide to remove the governor, nobody should talk. It's the same people have the power. If they wake up one morning and say, the governor did not do this for us and we've decided to remove him, everybody has to keep quiet.
That's a proverb in my place. It's when wickedness first starts for a year, it becomes a tradition.
I agree with that. Now, Prof, I want to bring you into this conversation. You're not a politician, or you've not declared yourself
I'm not a politician, but I'm not apolitical.
Yes. Yesterday, chieftain of the APC, Ambassador Nnah Mumuni, appealed to politicians to allow the president to deliver his campaign promises instead of dragging him into talks of the 2027 presidential race. We're not even halfway through his presidency and there talks of 2027. What do you make of all of this? I'll come to you, George.
Okay. That's why some of us have been advocating a 1-year, 5-term or 6-term.
So you can focus on the job.
So that you can focus on governance. Now, watch from 1999 to date. Once a head of state or a governor is elected, the first 1 year, he uses it to do one or two things. By the time he enters the second year, he's thinking of the next election. Politicians don't think of governance, they think of the next election. So that is why we're saying, let it be a 1-term, even if it's 5 or 6 years. Let the person know, once he gets there, he hits the ground running. And for 6 years, because he knows he doesn't have a second tenure. Watch them. When they get to their second term, they begin to do things you wouldn't have thought that they would have done. Because they now know that they don't have a chance of coming back.
Legacy project.
So that's why please, I don't know who is listening. Let the National Assembly agree on a single term of either 5 years or 6 years, so that these shenanigans will stop. Otherwise, we'll continue in the same circle.
Do you agree with that single 6-year tenure?
You know, I've been on this show when Atiku first mentioned it several months ago, and I said there's a danger of a single story around it as well. And that is that impunity is impunity. Whether you give them 2 terms or 1 term, people's character will still show. Even if they are not coming back, they will be politically on behalf of who they want to take over from them. Because I'm in the party system, I can give you a little bit of that. There is a tendency for people to always think in terms of power for the sake of power.
Yeah.
You know, whether I'm inside or outside, I must control power. And then there's a lame duck issue that comes up with you being a 1-term president, which means after a while, people don't take you seriously. They start thinking of who the next person will be. Once you show them your hand, they decide, we're not going to benefit from this person. Let's start looking at the next. So we have to look at both sides. But I think the most critical thing for us as Nigerians, whether you are using parliamentary system, presidential system, monarchical system, is the type of leadership that whoever is president provides. Which means, if you are running a company, you do a business plan, don't you? You do feasibility studies. You plan ahead. If you're a university, sir, you're a prof, you have a curriculum.
Exactly.
You know, whether professors change, your curriculum doesn't change.
Exactly.
So you know you're going to graduate no matter how many people resign from the academic system. The same principle applies in government. I should be able to put together a 4-year plan that will run, even if I step down from office.
We don't have that kind of.
That is it. The challenge we have, I've constantly said that, and for fear of sounding like a broken record, we don't have leaders. That's the problem. We have rulers.
Okay. Now, can there be constitutional guarantees to protect the electors, the citizens that are in the majority, that regardless of who is in power, you will get the best of governance and your rights will be protected? Because there's a sense of hopelessness that we can't do anything. Yeah. We've entered one chance until electoral cycles. 4 years is enough. A month is enough to destroy a person's life.
Every single thing you want to run the country well is in a policy.
Yes.
If you go and look at the state policies, local government policies, federal government policies, there are millions and billions of documents that tells you what to do. But the moment politics enters the fray, you choose which one you want to follow.
But another major challenge is the way these rulers are thrown up. Because the way you come to power determines what you are going to do.
Yes, true.
If you come through the back door, everything you are going to do will be from the back door.
We had a story. I mean, this happened in real life. Governor Ododo of Kogi State.
Yeah.
When he became governor, he told his people that, look, if I give you an instruction and Yaya Bello, the former governor, gives you an instruction, you should listen.
That's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. That's the process that brought him up in power. So, and this godfatherism, you see, that takes me to something else. There's a thin line between mentoring and godfatherism. Now, godfatherism, the way we practice it here is, you know, the godfather takes it all. It's different from mentoring. If you mentor somebody, your mentee will benefit, and you will benefit from your mentee. The mentor will benefit, the mentee will benefit. But in the way we run godfatherism here, the godfather wants to take it all. Look at what is happening somewhere, I don't want to mention name, where an ex-governor is insisting that all appointees must pass through him. No, we know we had such things happen in Lagos. We don't know how far it's true. But you can't just wake up and tell somebody how to sleep with the wife. No, it doesn't happen because you brought him to power. No. Well, no.
It is until the people who have the votes really truly decide their leaders. That's where you take the power away from the godfather.
But how do they decide? How do they come together when they're too poor to even organize? They're thinking of
no matter how poor you are,
needs.
No matter how poor you are, you have the same votes as every single billionaire.
Yeah.
All right.
But
do you use it?
But Oshomole, when he became governor, destroyed that godfatherism. However, when he left power, he wants to be a godfather.
Okay. I want us to quickly come back to the papers again. Let's see if we can squeeze in one newspaper, the Punch newspaper. On the front page of the Punch, we have the big story there. 54 trillion naira budget, experts divided over raise. Federal government adds 4.5 trillion naira agri infrastructure funds. President submits reviewed budget, MTEF to National Assembly. Federal government votes small funds for BOI and others. Tinubu demands school safety as fire kills 17 in Zamfara Islamic School. Edo Tribunal, INEC lists 5 witnesses over governorship poll. Nollywood filmmaker jailed 5 years for drug trafficking. Ogun assault. Falana receives elderly victim, plans charges against remanded monarch. Dangote Refinery, FCCPC differ as NNPCL insists on fuel import. Transporters, NLC chapters, TUC reject highway tolling. In fact, I'm sure Nigerians in general reject highway tolling.
Yeah.
Secession, Nigeria didn't learn from civil war, says Dogara. And finally, PDP secretary, Wike Camp kicks back as BOT backs governors. Okay, so let's start with the budget, the budget raise. I'll start with Mr. Ashiru. Let's get your thoughts on that.
Well, I actually don't have very strong opinions about how the president wants to run his budget. What I want is it balanced? Which is, how much of it is set aside for debt? Because that's what usually one of the challenges we have year in, year out, is that it's deficit budgeting since Buhari came into power, which is, we are essentially borrowing non-stop. And now it becomes a national crisis. As we know, that's part of the reasons that brought in Donald Trump into power in America. The idea that he is going there to sort of balance the budget gave a lot of people from the right the impetus to say he looks like the kind of person that can make it happen. Now, when you balance the budget, you can give tax incentives. But when you need to pay off your debt, you have to keep taking money from everywhere. So one of the reasons why you see subsidy removed, one of the reasons why everything is expensive is because the government is trying to balance the budget. It's looking for money from anywhere to pay off debts. And so we suffer in the end. But then they take more debts. And then, this same cycle repeats itself, and inflation becomes 5,000% over a period of a decade. So I think I'm more interested in looking at that budget from a point of view of, if you want to spend 600 trillion, that's no problem. Where's the money going to come from? And that is what is more important for us than how much is being spent. We want more money spent, but we want to know where you are going to raise the money from, because if you don't have any means of raising the money, your taxes are going up. You and I will pay more.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really the key. And for us, who have a more social understanding of how Africa needs to govern, we're interested in reducing the burden of the people. We are not interested in capitalism to the extent that it destroys 70% of the people who are multidimensionally poor. So if he's adding an extra 4.5 trillion, and the focus on that is an industrial growth, like through the Bank of Industry and Agriculture, I think that's a good one. Okay. That is the only one you can take a loan of $1 billion, and you and I can feel difference, because our population is increasing. And you need to have food security, otherwise you're going to have riots. So that is fine. But if they're taking the money in order for recurrent expenditure,
payment of salaries.
Payment of salaries for people to travel abroad, there we should kick.
Okay. I have challenges with the increase. The first challenge I have is that Baguda, when he was explaining to us yesterday how they came about at 4.5, he said FIRS will bring in 1.4, Customs 1.2, and the other sources 1.8. If you add that, that will give you 4.4. He has not told us why the 1.1 trillion will come from. That's one angle. The second angle is that this budget is debt financing. Now, couldn't we have used that money to service our debts instead of borrowing to service debts? You see, I don't know the food economists we are running here. You borrow money to service debts, and now you say you have additional income. Instead of you now reducing your borrowing and using that to offset that aspect of the economy, you are now, trying to create more jobs. Don't forget that he was saying he was going to create one enterprise, whatever, that BOT will be, BOA will be part of. Bank of Industry will be part of, and what have you. And some of us are arguing, why create another body when the Bank of Industry is there to take that, this thing. Jonathan did it in 2014 when he allowed the Bank of Industry to, give loans to these manufacturing companies that were dying, and that loan was a single digit, because these organizations borrowed money at double digits. And then what the Bank of Industry the Bank of Industry now came in and gave them a loan to offset the debt they have, the money they have borrowed, and then have a running cost. And then the two will be consolidated on a single digit, I think it was 7%. But I happen to know, because I was restructuring a manufacturing concern then that benefited from that loan. So why are we now changing the trajectory? Now, you are borrowing so much, and you say you have gotten money somewhere. Why didn't you stop those borrowing? And what's the problem we're having today? IMF and World Bank conditionalities. That's the problem we're having. And you are telling us the economy will improve. The other time in the media chart, he said this thing will come down to 15%, from 34 point something inflation to 15%. The IMF chief that came here told us that this economy will improve in 15 years. So what are we saying?
But the increase would also help with infrastructure projects, which will create jobs and also stimulate the economy. That's a positive.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. The problem of this country has not been policies. At the end of the day, you will see that that money will not get to that ministry. That's what happens. Implementation is just our problem. Tell me any agency that implemented its capital budget to 50% this last year. You can't find any. That's the problem. So stop all this. This is just grammar. It's just showman biz. We are doing showman biz here because those infrastructure are talking about now, it will not be implemented up to 50% by the end of the year.
All right. Let's get your thoughts, Mr. Ashiru, on this.
Well, the truth is, 70% of our entire GDP is generated by the private sector. So if you are bringing money and you're pushing it to the private sector, they can generate employment.
Of course.
Get the government's hands out of it. So as many things are out of government's hands, so that all they do is maintain public infrastructure and ensure that everything is running well, we will do extremely well. Now, the purpose of the Bank of Industries and all those other institutions in Lagos State, LSCTF, and all the CBN initiatives, all in the past, is to be able to move money into various segments and sectors and demographics of our economy, and then manage it well. But what we have discovered is that the people who are releasing the money are the beneficiaries of the money at the back end. So that you don't then get the effect you're supposed to get from this. So I'll give an example. Let's say you give 1 billion naira to a particular institution of government and say, distribute at a rate of 2, 3, 4, 5 million to maybe the Nollywood industry. And then you call the people in Nollywood and say, I'm sending you money, but 50% of that money is mine. So basically, the man now has less than he needs to do his work. So he's not going to be able to do that work. So he will just, might as well steal the...
Aren't there oversight agencies?
Who are the people?
The same oversight, same person is giving you the money.
Complained.
Is the person that is
The
oversight.
VCs just complained that they were asked to pay a certain sum before the budgets will be approved.
Oh, yes. So you hear
it was in the papers now.
You hear
it's not a secret.
You hear a lot of that. Even, I'm sorry to say, even in some states, you hear that agencies of government to get their budgets. Okay, let me not even go too far. When I was president of Nigeria Taekwondo Federation, I was invited, that was about, this particular invitation came about 7 years ago. I was invited to Abuja. I was in Morocco. I got a letter from National Assembly that come and defend your budget of your entity. Problem is I didn't write a budget. Who wrote the budget on my behalf?
Wow.
Somebody wrote a budget and submitted it to the National Assembly.
Defend it.
And then, but he wrote a letter now, since I'm the head of that agency, that I should come. Let me tell you a strange thing. Because I had to change my flight, I ended up being the only individual in one aircraft.
Wow.
Because I wanted to get back to Nigeria. I now go back to Nigeria, they now said, don't worry, we have taken care of it.
That's Nigeria for you.
I didn't write the budget. I didn't write the budget.
You didn't defend it.
I'm not the one that... some people went to defend it. The people that wrote it went to defend it. And they just told me, don't worry, we are taking care of it.
They went to defend it on your behalf.
And the minister at that time was now embarrassed because he now had to go and politically defend something that the public servants under him had done. And he was embarrassed publicly, and it was in the media. So classic example of what I'm saying is that clearly the federal government budgeted a certain amount, but the MDAs under it did not see the money.
The Prof mentioned something, a proverb, that when you continue to do something, it becomes a tradition. If you can remind us of that.
Yeah, I said a proverb in my place. When wickedness festers for a year, it becomes a tradition.
So this is highly, these things that might sound comical or highly dysfunctional, at what point do we press the hard reset and say it needs to stop? Where does it start from? Because we have generations coming and they will think, this the normal way to do things. Who are you to do otherwise? And that tradition, if you don't do it, you won't get your budget passed, you won't get your file submitted. When do we stop? Or what will it take?
It will take Nigerians to stop it, because right now we are docile. And the politicians know the docility of Nigerians, and they are capitalizing on that. Remember, we were told positions are not served a la carte. You have to grab it and run with it. And somebody grabbed it and ran with it, and nothing happened. So it will continue that way because people are not reacting. Everybody stays in the cocoon and does analysis, end of story. Nobody is willing to confront the situation. As long as we continue this way, the shenanigans will continue.
I mean, every time we keep hearing Nigerians need to be the one to end this, Nigerians.
Of course.
But then
South Africa did. Kenya did recently.
What different should Nigerians, what actions should Nigerians do that they haven't done?
Lagos State has the lowest voter turnout in the history of elections in Nigeria. and is the most advanced, most progressive state.
Yeah.
Has the lowest turnout of voters. So if people who are so educated and so knowledgeable in a very commercial entity refuse to come out to vote, then the few who choose to vote are choosing to vote the people that are benefited.
You know what's actually scary is that it might even get worse in 2027, because if I use my state for example, I was on my way to work on the morning of the elections because we had to be at work. We saw this touts came. They came, they put up a strong fight. And the average Nigerian sometimes just want to be able to, you know, live and survive the next day. I mean, I don't know what it will really take.
It's not
Can I be honest with you?
that.
Okay,
The courts are not helping matters.
All right.
The courts are not helping. Growing up, we were told that the court is the last hope of the common man. I think today they are the worst nightmare of the common man.
Okay.
Gentlemen,
It was a
thank you so
pleasure
much.
having you both. Thank you for your insights and analysis.